Hey guys, Matt Allen, Tim Little, welcome back to Tactical Bassin. What we're going to talk to you guys about today is muddy water fishing, specifically rising muddy water. The reason for that, we can't ignore it. Out here in the West, we know it's different everywhere, but out here in the West, we've got lakes flowing over their banks, absolute flood stage. Clearlake got shut down completely. Oroville got shut down completely. Guys are facing high muddy water. And for a lot of you guys in other places, you deal with muddy water all the time. So we wanted to talk about our top 5 baits for approaching that high muddy water. What are baits that you can go out with confidence? Because for a lot of guys, at least out here, it's not something that they're used to doing. It's something we haven't faced for a long time. So how do you go out to a lake that used to be clear and now all of a sudden it's muddy and actually believe you're going to catch fish? Where do you start? So we're taking 2 approaches. Tim has that reaction approach, that higher speed, and then I'm going to take that slow, methodical approach. Why don't you kick us off?
Yeah, right off the bat, high water, out here in Northern California, we haven't had water this high in 10 or 12 years. So some of these fish, they're not even 10 or 12 years old, so they're seeing water they've never even seen before. So they're way up, they're following this water up, and they're getting way back in junk. And you throw that muddy water in there, and it can throw people for a curveball. But I really like to throw a chatterbait. It's a bait or a vibrating jig. It's a bait that puts off a lot of commotion, a lot of vibration, and fish, they can see it, they can sense it, and they can find it. So I have a lot of confidence in a vibrating jig or a chatterbait. In my 2 basic colors, I'll throw something chartreuse and white, little flash to it, and maybe something that's black and blue, just has a bigger profile.
Yeah, great choice. For me, my first one is going to be the jig. Specifically, I'm going to go with a jig in a dark color. I'm either going to go probably one of 2, either black and blue or black, blue, purple. Seems like they're practically the same thing, but there are times where you're fine-tuning a bite, there's a big difference. I'm going to throw that jig with a rattle, and then for me, I'm going to go with that pitch-in style head so that I get the most surface area, so that when I'm hitting cover, I'm hitting that jig as hard as possible, getting the most sound out. I like to pair it with a beaver. We both do. Black blue beaver is a great choice. You're just trying to get that bold presentation. Now, why a jig? Like Tim said, he hit nail on the head. These fish are moving up in places that for a lot of them, they have never been before. A lot of these fish are going to be rushing the bank. And I mean really rushing the bank. They're going to be ultra shallow in the cover, in the brush, in the wood, in the grass, where that water's coming up and food is becoming available that they've never had before. The jig is a great way to get right down in there, make a bunch of racket, and get those ultra shallow fish out that you can't necessarily get with a faster moving bait.
Yeah, I was going to ask you if you're going to run a rattle or not, because I prefer rattle, especially in dirty water, so I'm glad you added that. And just like all videos, you guys, all the baits and everything we talk about, the trailers, I'll be down in the video description, so you guys can just click the link and go to Tackle Warehouse, make it easy for you guys. My next choice is going to be a spinnerbait. Again, cover a lot of water. Like Matt said, you're getting super shallow. You can throw this up on the bank, out of the water, and bring it in. The one thing that I want to talk about is the blade choice. This is the River to Sea Bling. It has willow blades on it. A lot of people in muddy water, they want to go all the way to a Colorado blade. Puts more thump out there. But from our fishing experience, I think Matt will agree too, especially if you're fishing like a shad lake, the farthest away from a willow blade you want to go is maybe an Indiana blade. Okay. That willow blade, it imitates the shad as best as all of them. So
if I can add to that, he's dead on. We're not saying that a Colorado doesn't work. We're just saying if you're fishing a shad body of water, what we've seen is that willow best imitates their sound, and it gets the bites, even in that muddy water when other people would preach Colorado, that hammers.
Yeah, and again, you're going to target the same spots that you would with a jig. Super shallow. If you can find moving water, that's a plus too, because those fish like to get their nose right up in that stuff and have the food come to them.
You know what? That was genius to bring up where these fish are positioning too. Because with the jig, I'm talking about going super shallow. Tim mentioned that moving water. These fish, for you guys that aren't used to these conditions, again, they're looking for that new food source. All the way up on the shore, all the way up in the cover, to the dead back of the pockets where that water's coming in. They will sit like a trout, nose in the current, and eat that food that's coming in, man. They are buried up in that stuff. You can't, in my opinion, you can't go too shallow. You agree with that?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. My last one is going to be a creature bait. Again, I'm taking that slower approach. 100% agree with what Tim is doing. That fast approach, find those fish, get the aggressive ones. But after you've done that, especially if you've picked a couple off, say you ran a bank, you got one on the spinnerbait, or you got one on the chatterbait, now you know there's fish there. You slow down, you pick it apart with that jig and a creature. Personal favorite is going to be the brush hog. Again, I'm either going with a black blue, or in the brush hog, I love to throw June bug. It's just a great profile. It's a dark profile. They pick it up really well in that watercolor. Texas rig it. I'm not going to say brass and glass, but I would go tungsten and glass. This is one of those scenarios where I would throw a bead in the mix just to get a little more sound out of that bait. And again, the Texas rig, the benefit here over the jig is that you're just getting such a large profile, and with almost no movement, or with minimal movement on your end, you're still getting a lot of movement out of that bait, and you can put it in thick stuff. If you're on a lake where the brush has flooded, it's really dense, those fish are inside there, and that Texas rig with a big creature bait on it is something that you can get in there, be really thorough, and pull those fish out.
Yeah, originally this was going to be a top 5 baits for muddy water, but I think we've kind of changed it to top 5 baits for rising muddy water with current. Totally. So what he's talking about right there with brush and all that, I would not leave home without a swim jig. I would go 3/4 ounce swim jig, same colors as a chatterbait. You're going to fish it just the same, but you can rig it if you want. You can rig it straight braid. You know, that dirty jigs, that California the swim jig, it's got that super stout hook, and if you're gonna fish that style of bait, or that style of cover, I would definitely throw a swim jig in there.
I agree. It doesn't have that same drawing power that the chatterbait or the spinnerbait has, because it doesn't have as much vibration. It's not going to pull them from as far.
Or flash.
Or flash. But on the flip side, you can put it into places where you can't put anything else. So that was an awesome number 5. Let's wrap it up there. Let's call that the 5. I think that was a perfect bait to end on that I hadn't thought about. We hope that helps you guys. You know, we know that for a lot of Western anglers, this is a very uncomfortable time to go fish. It's not something you're familiar with. For guys in other parts of the country, you're used to muddy water, but still, these are baits that you can fish with confidence. You know when you get out on that water, even if you're not getting bit right away, you are doing the right thing. You are throwing the right style of bait. So like Tim said, down in the video description, we'll have links to each one of these products with the colors, so you don't have to go search them out yourself. We'll give you the hook and the weight size, everything for the Texas rig. We'll just lay it out there for you. We hope that helps. If you guys enjoyed the video, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel. We'll talk to you soon.
Have a good night, guys.